one candle on. We also went and filmed at the Ilfracombe Zoo, where Christian was born. And this is Mary, his mother, a very handsome lioness as well. And Butch, his father. John took these photographs. They lived in this horrible concrete cage. That's the life Christian did escape. Butch in several rages had in fact crashed his way out of this, which alarmed the zoo and all the people in Ilfracombe. But who could blame him? Again, a marvellous looking lion. And Christian did turn out to be one of the biggest lions George Adams had ever seen. So this is us going off. In those days, people knew very little about transportation of animals. And in fact, he was sedated, but there was so little knowledge about what to do with animals. And in fact, at that time, we were sending live cattle exports, as we still do, most inhumanely as well. But back then, people had very little idea. In fact, it's nearly about the time Christine Townend was protesting about those live cattle exports on the Royal System, way ahead of her time. And it was a long flight in the hold of an aircraft, so we were very worried about him and not in fact, fingers crossed that everything would be alright. This is us, we've arrived in Nairobi, we've met rather dapper George on the left there. Christian's very bleary-eyed, it had taken a lot out of him. We had seen him in Paris and made sure he had water and things, but then there was like something like a 10 or 15 hour flight to Nairobi. Then this is his first night in the wild. We bring a lion from London, and he spent the first few days on our beds. It was very hot, and he had his winter coat, and he was very zonked out by the trip. But and after a few days, we did think that he should possibly be making a bit more of an effort, and he did get going. Walking with John, see how beautifully camouflaged he was. Suddenly it all made sense. And he instinctively knew it was quite a hostile area, and he knew immediately how to take thorns out of his paws and things like that. Ultimately, George said he was one of the easiest lions to rehabilitate. 5 generations in Europe in zoos. All he was inexperienced. And as some very nice man has been saying to me, how did he learn how to be a lion without his mother who teaches you things? And it was oddly, it must have been, George did bring in Boy an older lion, and I think just George's patience and keeping an eye on them and his instincts got him through. But you were absolutely right. It was a mother that does teach their young how to hunt and all those sort of things. So this was just beautiful, walking with lions, and others came with Christian. After the tension in London with him getting bigger, the tension just in case anything went wrong and what would actually happen to him, it was just so beautiful to just walk. He actually chose to come with us 90% of the time. So I particularly love this photograph, was just lying down by the Tana River where there were a lot of crocodiles. George ultimately built his compound a few kilometres back out of there. But that to me just sums up the incredible freedom of getting him there, an absolute miracle had come true. And again, the Tana River. The film crew, the English film crew thought we were sissies because we were very King's Roady and things. But in fact, as Australians, we could drive the cars, look after the lions, didn't get sunburned, while all the English film crew got ill and were hopeless. Sorry, I had to get that in. Now George built these 2 compounds, and I don't know if Boy's there. When we got to the river first, and this was being built, George went to get Boy, who'd actually been used in the filming of Born Free, and had been rehabilitated successfully but had been injured. It's actually very dangerous for lions hunting. You presume they're the apex predator, but like bringing down a buffalo or something is very dangerous. And he'd smashed his leg. So he'd been recuperating with Joy and George Adamson at Lake Naivasha, at Ellesmere, where a lot of tourists go and visit still. And going to get Boy, he heard of another lion, he picked up Catania, a lioness. I actually met a girl at a function. And I said, oh, what's your name? She said, my name's Catania. And I said, oh, what a coincidence. And she said, no, my parents were mad on your story. So she named Catania. And Catania was very good at, we had them in separate compounds. And Catania could run between the two, taking the centre, both Boy and Christian. Because in fact Christian was at an age where Boy would really kill him as a rival. So it was a very, very dangerous situation. And we were entirely in George's hands about how to handle all of this. And Boy just kept charging the fence, which somehow took it. And Christian actually knew how to roll over on his back in submission. So after this went on for 2 weeks, you see the rocks behind, we actually led them up in different directions, and we were all very, very nervous. And Catania again ran between them. And in fact, Boy then made one of his ghastly rushes at Christian, who instinctively knew to turn over on his back in submission. And while there was a lot of snarling and cuffing, Christian was in fact not injured. But this went on for weeks and weeks, and we actually went back to London, leaving Christian actually very depressed at not being accepted by Boy. And we went back to write the book that William Collins had commissioned us to write. So that's the book. And when YouTube came back in 2007-8, we revised and updated this book with what we knew about Christian a year or two later, what happened to George over the whole 18 years and things like that, and some new information that came. And in fact, doing the revised version, we sort of fell in love with Christian all over again, and we actually used the word, John came out to Australia to do it with me, and we used the word charismatic about him. He just had this incredible charisma, which made things happen for him. Now this is, I'm indulging myself faintly, these were the people, as I ended up an art curator, these were the people that influenced me at this time and as we did our book. And that's Peter Beard, who was quite an attractive, glamorous New Yorker, very in with the Andy Warhol crowd, and he'd fallen under the spell of Karen Blixen, who of course wrote out of Africa. And he'd gone to Africa because of her. And he was a very good photographer, a very good artist. And that's him writing his diaries in the body of a crocodile, which I hope you can see clearly. And just some examples of